What's good, y'all? Anderson Emerald here, and as you might be able to tell by my voice, it is a day after champs, and it was absolutely crazy. Now, in this video, I'm actually not going to go through my experience yet about champs. What I actually want to do is ask a few questions about certain things that I observed from champs and get y'all, because there's so many Jamaicans and y'all been showing so much love. I really want to get your understanding of some of these things that I've observed over the past few days while at champs. There's some things relating to history, some athletes, some rivalries, different things like that. We did get a chance to kind of record a vlog about my experience at champs and then, some things that we did around Kingston as well. So if you're not already, subscribe to Citius Mag on YouTube, go over to Instagram, to Twitter, and then also to the Citius Mag website. All of it is going to be linked in the description. We're gonna have a lot coming out, again, about the experience at champs and my experience around Kingston, some stuff that you do not want to miss. But let's quickly dive in. And again, these are kind of like some observations that I had from my time at champs, which was absolutely insane, absolutely amazing. But I would love to hear, your understanding of these different things. Now, first thing is the history of Calabar versus Kingston. And two things really stood out to me. One, when Shaquan Gordon, he had gotten the win in the 110-meter hurdles, he actually kind of went crazy. From Calabar, he ran 13.11 seconds in the semifinals in the 110 hurdles, which is insane. Then in the final, it was super windy, in the afternoon on Saturday. So it was like a negative 3.6 wind, and he ran 13.5 seconds, but he finished just ahead of the guy from Kingston College. Apologize for getting his name. But what happened is right after that, Gordon went over to Kingston College because, they have all their fans right by the grandstand right after the finish line. Y'all know what it is, right? Like, they are going crazy, and it was a close race with Kingston College. He goes up to them, and I'll put the clip here, and he just goes crazy. He's like taunting them with his, he goes crazy. Here's a clip. So a couple things. Obviously, this seems like some good competition. This seems like it's so hype. It seems like it's crazy, crazy competitive and, playing with the fans, Calabar versus Kingston, whatever. But then at the end of champs, after Kingston College actually won the title, I forget, was this like 38th title, in their entire history, and on the 100th anniversary of Kingston College. After that, they did their celebrations, and the Kingston College boys, when they were in the middle, they went over to the Calabar stands, there on the other side of the stadium, and they started to kind of throw bottles and stuff like that at each other, which was kind of crazy and interesting. Now, I had heard from some people about the history of Calabar versus Kingston and how it used to get kind of brutal, until recent times. People were saying some crazy things. So my question to all y'all is, I'm curious about why Calabar versus Kingston is such a heated rivalry, whether it's between the athletes on the track, whether it's between the fans, or whatever it may be. I'm truly, truly curious why that is, and if someone knows the history as to why it is. Again, I'm probably gonna do some research on it, but day after, I wanted to be able to get your insight. On top of that, I wonder if other schools have a similar rivalry that's very, very heated. For example, on the women's side, you have Heidel and Edwin Allen. In more recent times, they've been going back and forth. It seems like they don't have, as heated of a rivalry. I wonder if on the boys' side, if Jamaica College is maybe, just as heated with whether it's, again, Kingston, Calabar, other schools. So yeah, just curious about that. Some observations that I did have, but again, that Shaquan Gordon situation was wild. I ain't gonna lie. And then when I posted it on Twitter, a lot of y'all were quote tweeting, saying some wild stuff, but it is what it is. So that was dope. The other thing is the false starts and DQs at these champs. Now, this was pretty interesting as a couple of some high profile names actually ended up getting, being called as having false starts and then getting DQ'd, but then potentially doing one-off races, but then they didn't and they weren't included in the final. So for example, Sabrina Dockery in the 100, she actually won the 100-meter dash, and you had Abigail Wolf. Both of them were DQ'd later in the semifinals of the 200 because of false starts, and they weren't able to advance from my understanding. And then again, Jamal Stevenson, he had a false start in the 100-meter semis, but it came after the fact, after he ran the semis, and he was going to run in the 100-meter final, but then he was told he couldn't run. And I know I was, learning and reading about things about, Calabar saying they wanted to pull out of meet, some crazy, crazy things. And I wonder if anyone has some true understanding if have these things occurred in the past as it relates to champs, whether it was like these false starts or frequent false starts, or is it something that's occurring this year, and has it just gotten kind of really heated? Shout out to Jamal. I had seen him and met him all the way back at the New York International Showcase earlier in January in Staten Island. Shout out to my man Sanjay, where he won the 60-meter dash. He cooked in the 60 the 55-meter dash. But, I got a chance to see him again here, behind the scenes at Calabar, but, he didn't get a chance to run in the 100-meter final. So I don't know, it was kind of interesting. So again, let me know if this is something that has occurred in the past, or if this is something that's unique to this year, and, maybe some things are going on in the background. Again, just want to hear from all of y'all. The other thing that I'm interested in is the organization of the days at Champs, where Champs runs from Tuesday to Friday. And of course, they have the whole schedule where things kind of cap off with the relays, the 4x1, the 4x4, all those things. And I'm curious if this has always been the case. I know that the schedule has changed over the course of a few years, where they moved, maybe think after COVID, they had moved things around a little bit. And I'm just wondering specifically, why doesn't Champs run on Sunday, like essentially from Wednesday to Sunday, as opposed to what it does now from Tuesday to Saturday? My thinking was, maybe there'd be an opportunity for other schools to be able to come into Kingston to be able to fill up the stadium on, Saturday and Sunday, where maybe during the week they're actually still in school, they actually still have responsibilities, families have to work, and different things like that. Again, there may be a very good reason. I'm probably going to dive in and do a little more research, but I know some of y'all are very well versed in the history of Champs, and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of understand why that is. Similar thing in terms of the 100. I know the 100 meters is one of the more high profile events, and I wonder if maybe it used to be a little bit later. I understand that they shifted the schedule a little bit in recent years because they wanted to accommodate the different doubles, like the 100, 200 double or the 200, 400 double that many athletes do. Curious about that scheduling conflict, but specifically, like, why don't they host Champs from Wednesday all the way to Sunday to allow for more people from around the country to be able to come into Kingston and really fill up the stadium on Saturday and Sunday, instead of just a Saturday and the Friday as well. But last thing that I did find very interesting that I learned while I was here is there's a lot of African athletes who are competing for high schools in Jamaica. Like, a lot of them. Like, the 5,000 meters on the final day on Saturday was like a race of all Africans. And I'm truly interested as to why that is. Specifically, Jamaican high schools recruiting athletes from wherever it may be, like Uganda or from Kenya or from, all these, East African or potentially South African nations, from my understanding as well, Southern African nations, from my understanding as well. I really want to know why that is. And specifically, if y'all in the community, if the, Jamaican fans, if, people around the country do find that to be a positive. I personally find this very interesting because I actually didn't know that there was so much recruiting from Africa, specifically at high schools in Jamaica. I understand, of course, in the NCAA, everyone recruits from literally all over the world. It's literally an international, body of athletes from Africa, from Europe, from Asia, from wherever, right? South America, like wherever. That's the NCAA in college. But it seems again, new information, that it's interesting how Jamaica has a lot of African athletes competing in, in their high schools here in Jamaica, competing primarily in the distance events. And from my understanding, shout out to a lot of the people I've been speaking with, mainly, you see it from certain schools, whether it's like Kingston College, Jamaica College, or whatever. I think that Calabar doesn't do recruiting. So yeah, I'm curious as to why that is. And if, what the perception is. Like, do you find that to be good, or does the Jamaican public tend to think that it's not great that, they're bringing in, athletes from African nations to compete at Jamaican high schools? And kind of, is this like beneficial for Jamaica? Because is this like growing Jamaican distance running as a whole, right? Are these athletes, going on to compete for Jamaica? I suspect that they're going back home to compete for their nations when they go into the NCAA, or when they go on to be professionals, as opposed to competing for Jamaica. So maybe that's a negative, but maybe that does help like the development of other, Jamaican athletes locally who might want to become distance runners, who are able to compete against them. I don't know. This is all a question for the community here. But those were just some of my questions, some observations. This Champs was absolutely insane. this was amazing. And you know, I'd been here last year, kind of had like a really nice curated trip. This year I had a lot more time, and I actually got to see the full champs multiple days over, as well as some other things around Jamaica. And it definitely made my experience, I don't know, it was an amazing experience just like last year. So again, if you're not already, subscribe to Citius Mag on YouTube, and also, you know, follow them on Instagram, on Twitter. We're gonna have a lot coming out as it relates to champs and my experience that I had here. That'll be coming out in a few days or weeks or potentially as well. And then also you can follow me on Instagram, on Twitter. You know, I'll be of course posting a few things. I'll be back. Grand Slam track is coming up. Stay tuned because I have my predictions coming up for Grand Slam track, you know, in Kingston, you know, going down on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. But let me know what y'all think. I'll have timestamps here so you can, you know, kind of check up on the different topics. But always appreciate y'all. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Jamaican fans, I love y'all. Y'all showed me so much love. Thanks for watching.